Hello, hello, you, yes, and you. Hello to you right there, right there. You and your friends and your family. Welcome to the show. It's 5 p.m. in Sao Tome and Principe. It's GMT time, and this is time for another Follow Me to Africa conversation. And this afternoon, like every other afternoon, we're going to have a real powerful conversation. But one more thing, my name is Anquita Beatrice Achaleke. I'm the serial author of the Africa for Smart Kids series, publisher of Globuntu Books, and the founder of Follow Me to Africa. You are tuned into the Follow Me to Africa conversation series brought to you by Cliff North TV in the diaspora. Cliff TV in the Diaspora is a online TV series created to bring together Africans in the diaspora and the continent to celebrate the achievements and to share with one another. So if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure that you do that right now so that you don't miss out on any one of our programs. So cliffnote.com, that's where you subscribe. And again, the Follow Me to Africa series, it's a series of conversations curated and with handpicked Africans in the diaspora and on the continent who have incredible life transforming stories. We bring them on to share their experiences inside, to share lessons learned, to share their visions, and above all, share their love, our love for the continent that we call Africa, the continent we call home. So I'm going to welcome my guest on board. Listen, I'm stuttering right now because this woman, she's just incredible. And when you get to know her, you will know why she's so incredible and why you should be here and why you should now get your people on, and let's have this party running. Make sure that you get your water to drink, get whatever it is, because it's going to be really, really juicy in just a moment. But before I introduce my guest, I would like us to take a quick break as usual.
Clevenard in Diaspora Television is an internet online TV service. What sets us apart is a unique combination of hit African content, first and exclusive international free movies, series, musics, news, events, documentaries, tourism, teleshopping shows, youth TV programs, and live interviews. Clevenard Diaspora Television is available throughout sub-Saharan Africa and to the diaspora markets worldwide. Take your entertainment with you wherever you go. Watch on your smartphone, tablet, laptop, smart TV, depending on your device. Watch free movies with Clevenard Movies Television. Stop searching for free movies websites and watch Clevenard Movies Television. Watch your favorite African shows anywhere at any time. Don't forget to check out our top 5 TV channels created to get you informed. TV1, Clevenard in Diaspora Television. TV2, Clevenard Youth Television. TV3, Clevenard Movies Television. TV4, Clevenard Teleshopping Television. TV5, Clevenard Tourism Television. To start watching, sign up at www.clevenard.com and follow the easy steps. Once you're done, log into the Clevenard website or app on your device, click on any one of our 5 TV channels, and hit play. We will be very satisfied and happy to welcome you to our team as one of our new business partners. Contact info@clevenard.com +34 631 279811. Website www.clevenard.com.
Welcome to a follow. Welcome. Are we up now? We're having some. I know we're live now, so if you're out there and you're getting the noise, just bear with us. This is a live program. And so you're tuned into the Follow Me to Africa conversation series brought to you by Cliffnot TV in the diaspora. My name is Anquita Beatrice Achaleke, and we are in for a very, very exciting conversation. And this is really great. My guest is tuning in today from Zambia. She's my sister queen. That's how I call her, Ujana Kandake. I can't do her justice to introduce her. I will ask her to introduce herself, but I want you to pay attention to who she is, because she wears many hats. I don't know how many hats she's going to take off right now, but she's just incredible. She will introduce herself and then we'll get into the meaty part of the conversation. So make sure you stay with us. Sister, over to you. Who are you?
Oh, thank you for that warm welcome and a warm greetings. Mambaldi, if you're in Zambia, Rahubat, peace, blessings to all that are tuning in, both on the continent and in the diaspora. And thank you, Sister Anqueta, for having me today. Since we've met, I think we've had so much synergy that I'm more than delighted to be here today. So I am Ujana Kandake. I am in Zambia and I have traveled here via the UK. I'm from a Jamaican family, and as Jamaicans do, we travel the world, and my family traveled to the UK. So I spent a lot of time in the UK, I spent time in America, and eventually my heart became linked to Africa. So then I began to travel Africa. And now I am pursuing my goal and the goal of many others to successfully live on the continent, invest in the continent, help develop the continent, and help others to do so. So, this is my journey so far, and why I'm on the show today. Because literally, like my dear sister, my queen, we want you to follow us to Africa.
Right, we're right here. We're not passing this message from anywhere else. We are right here in Africa, and we're inviting all of you out there, sons and daughters of Africa, to follow us to Africa. And to help you do just that, my sister just launched, she came up with a brilliant idea. And the brilliant idea that she developed into a concept. I don't know whether this woman sleeps. I see she sends messages at every hour in the night. And within a very short period of time, she launched this incredible initiative. And listen to this, at the launch event online, we had 770 people. Says, what is this all about? We call it RTR, but I'll let you unpackage that RTR and tell us why 770
Yes.
people tune in on Tuesday
Okay.
to listen to us.
So we need to go back in history a little to bring us to this year, 2023. So for many, many years, there have been very small, discrete efforts in individual countries to welcome back African descendants, in particular, back to Africa. And the reason why I say African descendants is because we're speaking of the historic diaspora. I prefer to say African descendants because diaspora means scattered. And at this point, we are affirming that we are together, we are unified, and we are all African descendants. So it's African descendants that have been away from the continent for more than 400 years. They have lost their hereditary link, i.e., mothers, grandparents, etc. So it's a little bit more of a challenge to now return to Africa. Many have gone to Ethiopia. If you know anything about the Rastafari movement of Jamaica, you will know that for as long as I can remember, they have been saying we want to go home to Africa. If you listen to reggae artists, the genre of music from Rastafari, there's been every message to say that we want to go home, come back to Africa, go back to Ethiopia. They've always kept their sense of being African alive and had that message that it's time to go back home. Bob Marley, one of the most famous of reggae artists, I'm sure everybody knows his song Exodus, movement of child people, and it was talking about being able to get back to Africa, you know, to our roots and our motherland. So this whole energy and desire to go back home has been happening for quite some time in America. Those that came from the enslaved populations, they were given Liberia place to settle. So you were free to leave the United States and go to Liberia. Haile Selassie, after the war, also gave some land in Sheshemani, Ethiopia. And there again, people could come and settle, people being the African descendants. So there's been a long history of people returning back to Africa. But now, more so than ever, there's another sense of energy and renewed enthusiasm, another generation to return to Africa. But what we've been finding is, particularly for African descendants, they are treated at this stage as foreigners, having to get visas, not able to get their stay very easy. So that is how the Right to Return Alliance came to be, because organizations across the diaspora and across the continent have been helping and assisting people to repatriate, but we're finding the different barriers because of different political systems. So we want to erase that. We want to have a one holistic policy for African descendants returning home. So no matter which country they choose, there's a streamlined entry, there's a streamlined process for them to be able to settle home and invest, develop, just be home, which is really the dream, to be back amongst one's people, for some of us in the diaspora, or as I would say, on the other continents.
Whoa. So I love that story. And this is what all this conversation is all about. I connect with you very quickly because even though I was born in the continent, I spent so many years out there. And I eventually packed my two suitcases and returned. And ever since I did, my credo, my song, my drive has been come back home. So Tulu, Mr. Tulu, who is in the studio, when he says it's so cold here, I say come back home. And I think it's going to take a collective effort. You picked on things that are that are very important. It's going to take a collective effort for us to welcome ourselves home. To make ourselves welcome home, and make the continent invite and receive her children, her great grandchildren. So I'm very delighted about that initiative, the Right to Return Alliance, and I love for the fact that it is an alliance of people who are in the diaspora and in the continent, because again, this collective effort takes those diasporans coming home and those on the continent to welcome them. And I think we really need to have some tough conversations to be able to accept one another without prejudice, to be able to accept one another without overdue expectations that will, kind of make the reunion not work. So, sister, what you have returned yourself, you have gone through the UK and you're now in Zambia, and in spite of the challenges that you have, you are setting up this alliance. So what is the alliance? The alliance has a decade that was just launched. What is the essence of the decade, and from when to when does it go?
Okay, so we have launched as of January 2023, and it will run 10 years. It's a 10-year strategy up until the end of December 2032. And it's literally just letting the world know this is the actual decade for the historic return of African descendants back home to Africa. People have been coming, as I say, individually on the whole, but there hasn't been an overall strategy. And this year, that ends. This is the year we pull together. This is the year we look back like the Sankofa bird to our past to inform our future. And we want to look at what's worked, what hasn't worked. The world is ever changing, as you know, politically. There's talk of a borderless Africa. So right now, we really want to unify with both continental Africans and those out in the West to work together collectively over the next 10 years to, first of all, inform people in the West. Home is there. You are welcome. If you haven't been home, if you haven't reconnected to Africa, we are here to help you do so. And the first step for that is tourism, for you to come and take a visit. Some people have visited one place, some people have a bucket list and they want to go to many places to see how they feel about different parts of the continent. That's the first step, to inform people, you do have the right to return. Secondly, is the reality that when we say the right to return, you're returning to a continent that looks nothing like your ancestors left it, if you're one of the historic diaspora. And even for those that are continental Africans that have left maybe a decade ago, the continent has already moved on. So there are many, many things that we have to now educate ourselves on, acclimatize ourselves to, and really try and see ourselves into different communities so they can also learn about the ancestors, the African descendants coming back, because we also have different cultures we've picked up. If you spent any time in the Americas, in Europe, you have mixed with different people, you have different skills, different experiences, and those experiences can be shared on the continent. And equally, for the time you spent away from the continent, there's many things that, again, we need to learn about, because we've missed a good section of history, particularly those who are descendants of descendants of descendants. There's lots for you to catch up on, whether it be cultural identities. In Zambia, there are 73 different cultural identities. So you're not coming back to a place which has African culture, i.e., one homogenous culture. No, there are many languages. Even within one country, you're going to find different people do things different ways. There are different social etiquettes. There are different, even economic standards. So some ethnic groups are doing better than others in the countries. These are all politics that you will need to know. So that first step is going to take us a few years to get everybody enthusiastically going to different places. And during that time, we're going to be then talking to and equivalent government ministries to see how they can facilitate the tourism, how they can facilitate those who decide that, yes, I've come and I would like to stay. I've come, I'd like to reconnect. I've come, I'd like to help. Even if they want to go back home and don't want to move to Africa, they can still go back home and reconnect and help develop and help to assist those that do want to stay. So we're welcoming all. There isn't just one set of people we're looking for. And we really want to break stereotypes. One, the stereotype we have faced out in the West, whereby Africa has been portrayed as, less than modern, not a safe place, and all the other negative, false, overplayed and hyped up stereotypes. Africa is a continent. It has 55 different countries. It cannot be just the one image we've all been seeing tirelessly on the screen. So we need to break those stereotypes as well. And even in the West, the idea that if you've gone to the Western world, you're rich, you're successful, you're coming back with lots of money. Again, there are real stories, real people, and people in the West, they have different socio-economic situations. So not everybody has made it to be a millionaire or well-to-do. The reality is most people, yes, get higher wages, but the cost of living is so high, you don't have anything left at the end of the month. Most people live on credit. So it's all of these, things that we take for granted that we think everyone knows. No, we have to have that conversation so that we both realize where both sides of the coin are, those that have been living on the continent and those that have been living off the continent. So that's the beginning of the conversation, but the conversation is wide. Don't worry, the electrics are being fixed, we're still here. The conversations are going to be very wide because we have the queendoms, we have the chiefdoms, we have sovereign groups. Everybody needs to be involved in this conversation, not just foreign affairs. There are organizations that are Pan-African, Ubuntu-based organizations, and there are many other organizations, faith-based organizations. Everybody will have some kind of stakeholding position, and we want this to be a very widely researched and a very wide audience contacted in order to get this one holistic homecoming policy done. So there's a lot of conversation to be had. We're going to be literally trying to pull together 55 countries, which even the AU have found challenging. So this is really going to be something for us to work on. But I'm really positive that with everyone behind us and everyone being honest and real and genuine, we're going to be able to find a solution to find the different pathways. I can go through some of the pathways if you'd like, but we are going to be looking at different pathways.
Right. So thank you for that insight. I mean, those of you out there who are listening to the conversation, we're just still scratching, but I'm so glad that our sister gave us the essence of what this journey is all about and the different layers of activities, of thought, and of organizing that she has put in place. We see that her light is currently being fixed. We will take 1 minute, take a break, and within that break, we'll get her light fixed, and then we'll get back to the conversation. So please don't go away. Stay with us. We'll be right back. We'll go for a short, quick break.
In the 21st century's technological advancement, we all seek opportunities to move and network with the emerging space. Introducing Clevenard blog and event posting. Do you think you have some interesting materials, good content, articles, and stories? Then feel free to publish them on Clevenard blog and events page, just as team of our writers are doing presently. By blogging on Clevenard's blogs and events, you benefit from our reach and network. There are a constant stream of people visiting our social platform, and we have figured out just how to distribute our contents. This means you can basically skip the line and get access to a big audience from day one. Furthermore, we can help you get in touch with important people for projects with possibilities of translating your content into other languages and republishing them on Clevenard. This helps preserve and protect your content from getting lost. What's more, you also get to be part of our team with access to our network and lots of exclusives, behind the scenes information. And of course, you get full credit for everything you do, which brings you popularity and make extra income. Sign up now on clevenard.com and start blogging to your advantage. Please see the tutorial video on how to blog or post events on Clevenard Blogs and Events. For more information, contact info@clevenard.com +34 631 279811. Website www.clevenard.com. Clevenard, your blogs, your identity.
Welcome back to the conversation. You're tuned into Follow Me to Africa Conversations, brought to you by Cliff.TV TV in the diaspora. I hope that you have subscribed so you don't miss out on any one of our conversations and all the other programs of Cliff.TV TV. So if you're just joining in, we are having our guest, our real powerful guest, from Zambia, our sister who has returned back to from the diaspora to the continent in search of her home, and she has found it, and she's saying many more needs to follow me, and I'm saying yes, sister, let's go get them. And before we went on the short break, she was sharing the vision of the Right to Return Alliance, a program that was launched on Tuesday, 7th of February, very powerful in Black History Month. This is Black History Month, and launching such an initiative in this month and having these conversations is not just, it's part of that history that we are creating right now. And so, sis, you said a whole lot. I'm going to pick on two things. First of all, the decade stretches over the period of 10 years. What are the numbers that we hope to get?
Yes.
What are the numbers of people that we hope to attract during this 10 years, both those who are coming as tourists to visit, to discover the continent, and those that we wish that set up home on the continent? What is our vision? What is our expectation?
If we're looking continent-wide, then we are looking at tens of thousands. You have seen recently even a movement from South America, and that's a part of the diaspora, as it's called, that is often missed as the descendants of Africa. But Brazil had the highest population of Africans outside of Africa for quite some time. I know people always think of African Americans, and indeed, they are leaving by the droves to come over to Africa, particularly West Africa. This is partly due to the fact that the president of Ghana made a very, very big effort to go to Washington, D.C., and welcome in the African Americans. So that's why you'll see a lot of them have identified with Ghana and came back in 2019 for the year of return. And indeed, with that welcome that the president gave in the latter part of 2018, 2019 was their biggest year ever when it came to tourism. The extra millions of US dollars they made in tourism was so substantial that they wanted to rerun the year after the return in 2020, but that was kind of curtailed by the pandemic. And it kind of lost its momentum. So we already know that once a country welcomes and makes that effort to welcome back the African descendants, they will see the numbers coming through. They've just been waiting for the facilitation and that welcome.
Thank you. In line with that, I just want to draw your attention, those of you listening to us and your friends, we host the Homecomers Day. Follow Me to Africa hosts the annual Homecomers Day, and the next one is coming up in July. You want to mark that. If you check on my profile on CliffNote TV, you will on cliffnote.com, you will find that event already listed for you. So make sure that you join, because this is where homecomers share their experiences. They share their homecoming journeys. They share the challenges, but also the benefits of coming home. Above all, they share the mindset that you need to get yourself on. It's not just like packing your 2 suitcases and say I'm going home and then you're home. You need to really do a lot of mind work, a lot of mind shifting, and a lot of paradigm shifting, a lot of changing your perspectives and having your programs, having an agenda A, B, C, D, E, Z, right up to Z, just in case one doesn't work. And sometimes we underestimate a whole lot of things. So the stories of homecomers really give you a dynamic picture, but also tips and lessons that you could use to quantum jump your return trip and not have to go through some of the pitfalls and some of the challenges that they had to go through. And we're also launching that mentorship program that allows those who have successfully returned home and set up their programs to walk you, to mentor you through your own homecoming journey. So you want to make sure that you don't miss out on the next homecoming day and the conversations that will be shared there. So back to my sister. So the numbers are growing. We have seen that Liberia has recently given out passports to Africans coming home. We've seen Namibia is doing something right there as well. Ghana is, of course, on the lead, and we're seeing a number of other African countries joining. Now, I know the focus is very much on government, on the administrative level when it comes to the regulations, but also the formalities, including migration papers and all of that. What will you say to the average African listening to us? What is it that you, historic diasporans coming back home, need from us to feel welcome so you can make that decision to stay? And top to that, so what will you need from the ordinary people, and what is it that you need from governments?
From ordinary people, to be honest, I've traveled to Ghana. I've been in Ghana for a while. I've gone to Senegal. I've gone to Tanzania. I've traveled around, and the welcome, moreover than not, it's already there. Once you introduce yourself and they realize that you're not just a tourist, you're someone that's come home, the welcome is there. So I wouldn't say there is so much for the ordinary people. I think it's more been, as I said earlier, a conversation for them to realize what your experience has been. So if it's anything, it's to have listening ears, to relate to our experiences and to also share their experiences, explain to us, the cultural melting pot that we are walking into, get us up to speed. So I think it's just to keep the already existing dialogue going. And also people are very keen when they meet you to have investment ideas. You know, people are rearing to go oftentimes on the continent. So I think the energy is there and the willingness to want to be partners is already there. I travel and I go to different diaspora conferences each year. And every time I go to a conference, there are so many enthusiastic people, you know, in the country itself and visitors from other countries, and everybody is enthusiastic to go into partnership. So I think on the ground, for the most part, that welcome is there, and you know we are so grateful and we are thankful. It's just really the conversations that we are not able to have with the governmental ministries. There's quite a distance in that conversation. There's quite a bureaucratic wall, as it were. You know, I'm glad you raised the point that you can't just pick up your two suitcases and travel. You know, you have to have a plan, you need to do your research. But some of the websites are not quite up to date. Some places are so different with the way they do their visa systems, the way they do their work permits. Some have just a work permit, some mix it with the resident permit, some have a separate residence permit. It's actually quite a minefield going from country to country, trying to work out, you know, where is the best place for me to be. So I think before we think about on the ground, I think on the ground is quite welcoming, particularly chiefs. The chiefdom and the queendoms. I've hardly been to a place where the chiefs are not welcome. They always welcome you home. You're invited to their palaces. You know, they will show you around. They will let you know, yep, there's land available. You are welcome back. I've found a very warm welcome in general across the continent when it comes to the sovereign ethnic groups. So I think really that focus that we're needing to expand is the foreign affairs, is the development agencies, it's those crucial gatekeepers. They're the ones that really are at the gates, literally at the airport, literally at the embassy, for you to get your paperwork in order. And sometimes the way that we are assumed as foreigners coming in with 500,000 to invest, you know, before you can get a permit is quite unrealistic. Yes, of course, there are going to be some that have that kind of money, but the average diasporan, the average African descendant, they're not coming back with 500,000. And what you'll also find is that, sorry, excuse me 1 second. There, excuse me. What you'll also find is that the attitude that they need to understand is that when people come home, they're not making money to take back out. That's what other ethnicities do, you know, Chinese, Arabs, whatever. They come into countries, they do business, and then they're taking that money back home. Whereas African descendants in particular, when they come home and they invest, the money stays in the country. It's a whole different dynamic. So to be treated under the same rules as general other foreigners, it really just needs a little bit of thought and a little bit of revision.
Incredible. So I'm glad we're having this conversation. I think when we launched the decade, we said we are going to do some tough conversations, because it is through those tough conversations that we get to really get a realistic perspective and a realistic vision of what homecoming means, and especially when it comes to expectations. Now, there's one thing, being a continental African who
Yeah.
has lived abroad and gone through different kinds of integration programs. When we go out into the Western countries, you are faced with an integration program. You have to go through all of that, including learning the language and the culture and all of those things. And there are some
That's right.
limitations that you're exposed to. And sometimes when we're coming back home to Africa, we think that all of that shouldn't be, because after all, it's home. But like you say, a lot has moved on, and the different
Yes.
administrations are in. And what I'm trying to say here is we need to do some work to remind those who are abroad, this includes continental Africans. I mean, there's some that tell me that that say, I listen to the conversations where they say, I mean, I'm from there. I come from there. I mean, I don't know why they're putting all these things on. You can't have been away and just come back and everything is like you've never been there before. So I'm trying to say that some of these hard conversations that we need to do need to make people understand that we're dealing with systems. And when some of how do I call it? Some of these things that look like obstacles are put on your way, we need to have some understanding that if that would not be, we wouldn't have the system, and that you have that anywhere in the world. It's not just because it's Africa that we should have some kind of romantic, let me put it that way, expectations. This includes having been
Yeah.
out there 20 years and coming back. I can't come back and just say like, I come from here, you get me in. And when so much has changed within the country. And this is even more so for historic diasporans who are coming for the first time. I think the level of conversation, we need to be at a point where we're saying, let's push it to the very edge so that we understand where we're coming from. It's realistic. We understand what we can expect from one another so that we don't get disappointed. If we push it to that age, we will touch all the different layers of possible challenges and difficulties that we may have. And if we pass through that level, we would have gained a whole lot of ground. And above all, build the resilience and the understanding that it takes to be able to settle and to understand also that we have 55 countries, that probably if one country is not very welcoming, look at you, you've been to all the many countries, you're now in Zambia. So when we know that we have 55 possibilities, and it takes a lot of learning to
Yeah.
understand them, to be able to say, this are my first options, and this are the next options. So how is this kind of conversation, this kind of exchange, part of the campaign of the decade?
I think so. The conversations have to happen, and some of the practical steps, like you said, language. So if you are going to settle into a country, if you go to China, you have to learn Mandarin. So it is not unreasonable for people coming back to go through that kind of orientation. Learning the language is important, especially if you want to really come home and be a part of the community. So I think language that can be learned even before you go to a country, even though it's just as much fun being right in the middle of it all and learning it on the spot as well. But you definitely need to learn that as well. But there's also just cultural nuances, and that's why I always say to people, visit first. Please visit first. See what the places are like. Some people have just literally packed their bags and said, that's it, I'm not coming back. But in this day and age, that's not recommended. And even for continental Africans that have been away for maybe 20 years, they may have children and their children don't know the language. So it's not even just, the adults, even the children would need to go through some orientation. And if they're going to join the school system, again, research needs to be done. The curriculums are different. For me, African schooling is as good as everywhere else for a focused individual. I'm an educator, I've taught in the West, in different countries, I've seen the educational system. That's something people should be worried about. In fact, we should be really developing the educational system in Africa and decolonizing it as well, to make sure that we're actually learning about Africa and the sustainable future of Africa as feeding the world and having its own energy source, being so rich in minerals, how to manufacture. There's a whole new wave over the next 10 years that we need to be focused on as we come back, to make sure that we're part of that change for when people come back into the education system as well. So no, we do have to have those conversations, and everybody really needs to be on the table. It's very hard for us to have this conversation and not include the government or not include the local councillors, MPs. It's about everybody having their chance to have a say.
When I listen to you, it reminds me that the moving to the continent is more than just a decision. for some people it may take stages, especially those who have children and all of and people who have businesses. And I think when we have the conversations and we bring everyone to the table, and really get to find out what are the specific needs, what are the specific needs of each one of the persons going home. I think the collective thing, trying to get the government to facilitate the incoming procedures with migration and all of that is very important. I think that's one of the uniform thing that could be done. Beyond that, I mean, people have different expectations, different socializations, and different backgrounds. And when they're coming, some of them are coming because they're retired. Some are coming because they want to get a job. Some want to set up business. Some just want to connect with their ancestors, the land of their ancestry, and all of those come with different packages. And I think this is what makes the decade so important, that we're going to touch on these layers. Now, let's go back to your sister. When I returned, one of the big thing that was, I lived in Europe, in small Austria. So I was the black woman in the block. If anything happened and they said a black woman, everyone knows who that was. So it's like you're always visible, at the same time invisible when it comes to participation, that thing. And returning back to South Africa, one of the things that happened was that I could blend out. Oh, light is back. I'm grateful. So it's like I became invisible. I just blended in. And I could go with my flip-flops just anywhere. I was incognito and no one could point at me. So when my friends in Europe said like, what is the big thing that you've done, that has happened to you there? I said, I'm just being. I'm no longer fighting. I'm just being. And this is the big deal for me. So you coming back home, what will you say has been your biggest deal?
Wow. Well, I'm still not invisible because I'm just known as the Jamaican lady around where I am. Yes, but what I have found is I've become less visible the more that I've learnt the local language, the more I get into normal daily life. That that's made all the difference. And I now know the difference when people walk up to me and are now speaking to me in local language. That's when I know I've crossed the barrier, because before it would not have happened. So it's nice to blend in. It is. I think it's good to give back to the community as well. So being here, I've started an NGO and gone into community facilities. So we're opening a Pan-African library. One of the things I noted is that there just hasn't been access to material to learn African history, Pan-African history, so history of Africans across the world, history going right back thousands of years, not just the modern books that we see now, but the ancient kingdoms of Timbuktu, the ancient kingdoms of Nigeria, of Egypt. All of these places have so much history. South Africa has the first clock, which dates back millions of years. These are not things that are known from day to day. So I think one of the most important things I've had in conversations and in the project is to be able to facilitate that history and having the books. And that's one of the projects I'm really looking forward to, because the conversations have been great. Well, so what was you doing in Zambia before 2,000 years ago? What religion did you have? Christianity is 2,000 years old. So what are your people doing before then? And they're like, I don't know, maybe traditional practices. I said, so what are those practices? And it really is good, because then they start to think themselves, well, what was we doing? No one's recorded it. So I think this journey back for me is going to be so phenomenal, with the oral histories being recorded, being remembered. I've spoken with the local senior chiefs, and I'm like, you're the custodian of the local culture. We want you to come in, local community time where you're literally teaching this oral history again. And now that we have technology, we can record it so it can be played again, whether it be visual, whether it be audio. These are the things now that we can actually have a whole renaissance not because of technology itself, but just a renaissance of African knowing who and what their history is. That's, I think, one of the most exciting things that I can say for here. We're also building a natural health holistic center, looking at different aspects of staying healthy and fit, your general well-being. And we've also got an African Caribbean cultural center where the two paths shall meet. And I'm sure you'll see some of the launch pictures. We've put so many different images of traditional African art that people literally come and stop and just look at the beautiful art that they've missed for so long around them. So we're just here, just bringing that culture back in and just pushing that energy into the town. And the town is quite a small. And I was amazed. 2.5 hours drive away, 3 hours drive. I was walking through the main capital for the province, and people actually knew me. They were like, "Ah, you're the lady that's painting that building with all that beautiful art." So the news has gone around, and people really do appreciate seeing their images, seeing their art, their history. I've put up the local symbols of the clans so they can see themselves, the children can see themselves. And the education system has been very welcome. They're going to be bringing their children from the schools, and the teachers that are in teacher training. They're also going to be brought along to check out the history books and look at the different pedagogy that they can have by using different material based on African-centered information. So for me, being an educator, I'm in my element right now.
I love that conversation. I just love it because it's just so in line. A couple of years back, I launched a program that I called the Cultural Memory. The Cultural Memory was just about collecting that indigenous knowledge and digitalizing it so that it's, when you were saying, I was just smiling like, yes, this is the time for it. And I think the meeting, the reconnection of you from the diaspora and those of us continental Africans is going to have that effect because your ancestors, our ancestors, and your parents and grandparents were taken away sometimes, and they took something with them that was destroyed for those of us, our parents who stayed here because of the colonial system of education. It destroyed a whole lot, through that colonial period right up to leading to independence and the school systems as well. And I think coming back, and my awareness of African history, I write the books that I write because of the exposure in Europe, the exposure that showed me, that made me question, what is it that I have? What is my identity? What is my heritage? What is it? And I had to find it. So I think we coming together is going to create that boom, that you bring home what your ancestors took along and conserved orally, and then it became material to those of us who have been kind of brainwashed over so many years. And I'm so excited for that journey. So we're going to take our final break, and then when we come back, we'll wrap up the conversation. So those of you who are joining, I hope you are enjoying the conversation as much as I'm doing. And I hope that you are joining this movement because it's going to need every one of us, whether we're on the continent or in the diaspora, whether we're young or old, men or women, we are going to need everyone in this movement so that we jointly create the pathway, a sustainable pathway to people returning to the continent, because it is mutually beneficial for all of us and it is extremely needed. So we will take a quick break and I'll turn on my light, and when we come back we will go back to our conversation. And before we take a quick break, make sure that you check my profile on clicknorthtv.com for our upcoming events, especially the Homecomers Day, the second Homecomers Day 2023 listed on my profile. Let's take a quick break and don't go away. We'll be right back.
Hello there. Looking for an African movie? Search no further. Clevenard African Movies TV is here for you. We are dedicated to the acceleration of African films, TV series, documentaries, and lots more. Explore our movies at home or on the go. Clevenard Movies is free to watch on clevenard.com. Don't miss this opportunity. Hurry now. Sign up and subscribe today.
So welcome back. Welcome back. You're tuned in to Follow Me to Africa Conversations, brought to you by CliffNote TV in the diaspora. I hope you have subscribed because, hey, there is so much content here. It's not just the conversations that we're having. When you subscribe, you have the time to walk around cliffnote.com to find out so much that the platform offers you. Whether you're a business person, whatever it is, we hope that you stay with us. But right now, we are into our conversation, Follow Me to Africa conversation, the last part. And my guest is our sister queen, the ambassador, the mastermind, the initiator, and I don't know whatever title to give her, but she is this brain's child. She is the carrier of the brain that says it is time for the return of the children of Africa. And she doesn't only say it, she creates a movement, and it's taken her a long time. So if you're just joining in the conversation, make sure you go back and listen from the onset, so you really get to understand the DNA of this movement and why you should be part of this movement right now. So I'm back to my sister. Sis, why now? Why the right to return this year, now, 10 years ahead?
It needs to be now, just really because of the energy. From 2019, I think we spoke about earlier, the welcome from the Ghana president, and that definitely gave some thought by the diaspora to come home. But since then, even during the pandemic, Tanzania saw great numbers of people wanting to go home, and so on and so forth. It's a natural thing. It seems like people's DNA is literally going off and saying, you know what, I think it's time to go home. And I think, if we're honest, the myth of the West being the best, I think it has died.
Yes.
I think in recent events, world events, we can see that everybody has been able to maintain and control their own societies. And I think that myth of one place being better than the other, the grass being greener on the other side, I think it's been broken with the last events of the last 2 to 3 years. And I think people have realized, I actually think I'll be better off at home. And, there is no better place than home. Your family is there. We love our family. We dislike our family at times, but it's family. And there's no perfect place. As you said, there's no romantic, paradise to go back to. Paradise is in the mind. And, we just need to have our right mindset to go back and create paradise. Everything, all the ingredients are already there on the continent. But we do have the reality check that we have to go through a political system in order to arrive and settle. So that's why the Right to Return Alliance is there, not because we necessarily need to convince people to come home. They've already been doing so. And the different organizations that we have, like yourself, for Sao Tome Principe, for Namibia, Africa, Cameroon, Tanzania, Ghana, of course, Zambia, all of these places, people have already had their experiences, and some can be avoided, and it can be avoided definitely by making sure there's a robust political system ready to greet us. We have so much to offer, if you're a contemporary diasporan or historic diasporan, we have plenty to offer. We're ready to come home, and we really want to integrate the narratives that come out, people wanting to take jobs and people being rich. My main thing for this first year is to just take away those stereotypes. We're all people of all different social statues. Some of us are doing very well. Some of us are having, a regular life. Some of us are struggling. But the point is, let us struggle at home. The point is, let us build home. Most of us have left and drained our countries of our skills, our brains. Let's bring those brains back. Let's bring those skills back. Let's bring the soul back. Let's bring the energy back. Let's bring the motivation back, and, let us make sure that people don't have to settle and then go back to where they came from. just because the political environment, did not lend itself to that return. And it's quite easy fixes. It really is quite easy fixes. We're not going to reinvent the wheel. It literally is just looking at some subtle changes, making sure people can retain citizenship, for instance, from where they come from. It actually is quite a good economic move to allow people to have dual citizenship. That's something that some countries need to work on. Visa-free travel, that's another thing that will definitely encourage tourism and encourage that first visit back. Having an easy transference of things like driver's licenses, having an opportunity to open a business without so much bureaucracy. The other thing as well that I've noticed is you need to have a degree to, be an employee somewhere else in the world. Many people don't have degrees, but they are very skilled people. They're very good at what they do. So some of this is quite archaic in some ways. And the one as a woman is having a spouse's permit and you're not allowed to work. These kinds of things, it's a high time that they change, because women have a lot to add in society, both, yes, as mothers, both as makers, but also as business women, both as, skilled personnel. So I think a general update is actually needed anyway with some of the immigration laws and systems, because they've been there and they're usually based on a Eurocentric model. So it should be Africa for Africans. We need to look at what does Africa need and put that system in place to make sure that everyone coming back can do so without undue and unnecessary challenges. And of course, there should be some checks. People can't just come straight in, but let's look at what can be quite equitable and quite beneficial all around.
So we're almost running out of time, but I want you to answer one quick question, really quick. So you are a historic African coming home. The right to return alliance, is it only for historic Africans, or is it also for continental Africans who are abroad and who are wishing to return? Oh, it's like we have trouble with the network. She is frozen. Sis, can you hear me? No, I'm sorry, we can't take that question from her. The network has disappointed us. She said, let's bring home the soul, let's bring home the heart, let's bring home the motivation. And that is the perfect word to finish this conversation. And I'll certainly bring her back to answer the question as to whether this movement is for continental Africans. But me being part of the movement, I can assure you that it is not just for historical Africans, but it is also for those of you out there who are from the continent, return, and you need a path where you need assistance with getting back to home from where you are. So I speak on her behalf. I would have loved her to say this, but technology fails us. Thank you so much for joining today's conversation. We are delighted to have had you on. Yeah. Oh, she's back. And sis, I just wanted, we have half a second. I want you to answer the founder of this movement, the ambassador. Is the movement just for historic Africans, or is it also for continental Africans who have been living abroad for a while and who need that kind of a support network to return back to the continent?
It's for everyone that's an African descendant who's coming home. It's for everyone. There is no differentiation. We're all there together. We just have some specific needs that need to be catered for one group as opposed to the other. But everybody, come on, it's time to come home, and we're here to assist each other.
Thank you so much. That was so timely conversation. Thank you for taking the time. I know how busy your agenda is right now, having launched that decade. And again, this is an invitation to all of you. If you have friends, you have family who can be interested in this conversation, who have been thinking about coming home, it has never crossed your mind, and you hear this right now, please take the message across. You are now the messenger. Make sure that you spread it wide and join. How can people join the movement, sister? Very quickly. If anyone is interested,
yes, in being to say, for more information, just simply come to our website, therightoreturnalliance.org, and email us at righttoreturnalliance@gmail.com. I look forward to hearing from you.
right2return.com and right2return@gmail.com. That's it, where you can find us.
No, Right to Return Alliance in full. So right2returnalliance.org and right2returnalliance@gmail.com.
right2returnalliance.com, right2returnalliance@gmail.com. That is very easy. So make sure you do that and make sure you check my profile for the next upcoming African Home Commerce Day. And that was it from today. Next rendezvous is on Friday next week, and we'll be having a book launch. It's called 50 Years of Lies Told to Africans. It's by Mr. Sam Tita, and you don't want to miss out on that book launch. It's an incredible book, and we'll be talking about the lies that have been told to Africans 500 years down the line. So this is the homecoming journey, and I am Beatrice Achaleke. We are always delighted to host you on Kifli TV. And Friday, says it was a delight having you here, and I want to thank the studio for having us, and see you next week.